August 27th, 2020, and this is SCD community meeting. And we're gonna go through our agenda here. So I think the first item is from Sebastian. Let's see if Sebastian is here. Maybe not yet. How about Vivek? Do you want to start your item first?
Sure. I can go ahead and I can just run through what the idea is. So here's a proposal for like a rate limiter. The basic idea is to rate limit requests that come into HCD every so often. And the idea stems from like us serving Kubernetes. The clusters are really, really big. And we have a lot of requests come in. And at that point, we're so dead in the water that there's no point in serving HCD requests anymore. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to limit the number of requests that come in. And so there's I started a discussion on the GitHub and just to discuss what our idea was, and then sort of like come up with a solution that works, and then I can present this and show it to the community, and we can see where this goes. So just to run through the idea, I'll just go through the graph, and this is just a basic representation of how the code path is, or like just to give you guys an idea. So when we initialize the HCD server, we initialize the gRPC server, and in turn, which initializes the rate limiter. Now, there are two choices. Either you can enable the rate limiter or you can disable it. If it's disabled, then it just takes a normal code path that it used to. But if it's enabled, then you have sort of like two parts to this rate limiter, wherein like you can define a rule set, and within a rule set, there's multiple rules that you can apply. Now, you would ask, what is the rule set and why do we need this? Like a simple rate limiter would just be like, oh, I just want 10,000 requests a second, and anything beyond that would be rate limited. The idea is that you don't want to rate limit all the time. You want to rate limit, for example, like, I'm at 80% of my storage. I need some time to compact. So I'm going to rate limit for now until I go below 80% of my storage limit again. So I'm going to rate limit now. So that can be rule number one, wherein like, oh, I've hit 80% of my storage. Let me start rate limiting now. And then you rate limit to a certain number. Like you can decide a number like 10,000 requests a second. So that can be rule number one. Now, someone would have a use case for like, I want to rate limit over the weekend. So you'd rate limit, you'll define rule number two, like if it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then I want to rate limit, and so on and so forth. Like you can define any number of rules that you want. And so it makes it more customizable for anyone to use. And the rules are refreshed every so often. So you can define the refresh frequency. Like I just want to check every 10 minutes because I know how much my load is. So let's see every 10 minutes if I want to again check for the rule whether if my storage is below or above 80%. So then I would check every 10 minutes. But for the weekend, we know that the frequency would be every 24 hours. So that would be rule number two. Like I just want to check it every 24 hours. I don't want to waste compute resources for checking every minute because I know within a minute, like it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. So that's kind of rule number two. And then, there are these, once you initialize your rule set, it spins off a Go routine, and the Go routine keeps updating an update status. So this update status is one sort of, you can think of it as a simple, like a Boolean value of some sort, which keeps like an update on like, oh, are the rules triggered or are the rules not triggered? If the rules are triggered, then we need to start rate limiting. And then once a request comes in, it goes through either the Unary or the stream server, and then it checks whether if the rate limiter is active or inactive. And if it's active, if any of the rules are active, but we don't need to rate limit because we haven't hit anything. So then it takes the path of whether if it's enforced or not enforced. And keep in mind that these two processes are separate because we don't want to slow down the request time. So when the request comes in, the answer is already ready, whether if it's rate limited or not. So we compute the rule set separately while we keep the request very streamlined, and we don't want to slow down the request. So that's the idea of having different Go routines for different rule sets and keeping them separate from, like the request path itself. So that's kind of the basic idea. And this is what we wanted to present. Like our team has been working on this. So we just wanted the community to see this and kind of just get their feedback on it.
So are these rules like statically built into etcd, or there is an API to activate or deactivate rule that you do over public API?
So so the thing is, it's part in, like, it's not a, like, it's not one big API sort of a thing. You can define your own rule set in one file, and then you need to reference that like rule in the code itself, like where we've defined or we've given like a place to update your rule set. And we do everything about like maintaining the Go routine and everything. You just need to define the static rule itself. So I think it'll be better once you see it in code. We're just waiting on like our company to approve the code so that everyone can see it. So that's what we're waiting on. But yeah, the rule is sort of like defined before you initialize the server. Once you initialize the server, you cannot change the rule anymore.
Yeah, so yeah, there are like multiple ways to do this. I think this is a great start, a great idea. So I would look into if gRPC server support the interceptor, so that we can just plug in the something like automation webhook, like whenever request comes in, we can check against the rate limit rule. Like maybe gRPC support like natively. So another one, we already have a database quota layer in the server code. So maybe another way we can just like implement those in that layer. But like for in general, I would start with the like a simplest like rule possible, and then just make it extendable, and then like just start from there. So yeah, I will look into if gRPC supported, yeah, first, and then.
So there is there is a, I think there's a middleware, gRPC middleware that supports sort of like the rate limiting stuff. We had used that, but we wanted to make it more customized, and we wanted to like fine grain control, or we would like to have fine grain control on what rules are executed when. So that's why we had to build something more custom than just having like the middleware use, like the directly use the middleware itself. So we started out simple, wherein like we were just rate limiting all the time. But the idea is that we don't want to rate limit like all the time, and we just want to rate limit when there's a requirement. So it's sort of like it just, the rate limiter only kicks in when needed and not all the time, so that people can do whatever they need. And you can do just like a simple rate limiter. You don't need to have this rules or any of this. You can just simply do like I just want to rate limit 10,000 requests per second all the time. You can do that, and you don't need a rule, and you don't need all these Go routines. So that's also possible with this.
So like
if that makes sense.
Like, so gRPC middleware like cannot do something like this, like.
So it can do limited things, and it can't do the rule stuff that we have. At least that's what we've done, like our basic research says. So
Okay, yeah. So it would be great if you can like explain like more about that in the design doc, and then like we can move on.
Sure. Yeah. I can expand on it. I can write down like more about it, and just for a community to better understand and see this. So yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, Vivek, I just put a link in the chat there. You might, I don't know if you already looked at it, but if you are expanding things and, maybe sort of elaborate on, I think he has covered a lot of things here, some rules and, more details.
Yeah.
So if you already looked at it, that's great. If, maybe this can be expanded, like having sort of collaborative effort there if you want, right, with him.
So the thing is, we looked at this document exactly. This was, I think, the starting point of when the discussion started, and then we wanted something, and we started building over it. And so most of this mentioned in like in the document that you guys are seeing, you can add rules, custom rules to incorporate most of these things that have been mentioned, like so CPU rate limiting and something like that. You can just define a simple rule, and you can use any of these things inside what we built. So sort of what our idea was to build a framework and then allow people to do whatever they want within it.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I can write more about it just to give like the community a brief idea on like, okay, this is what our exact idea is then, and more like like some more details.
Okay, so Wenjia, should we milestone this for 3.5 as a like experimental feature?
I think I
Like
can
how
speak to
long?
my.
Yeah, how long would it take for us to? I mean, how like a big up change would be like for the just like a POC.
So I can speak to my team and get back to you with a timeline on how we want to do this. So, but I can get back to you in a week or so by like giving you like a brief idea on the timeline that we want to do this, or how do we
Okay.
want to go forward, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah,
Sir, if we don't have time, so if you mention the use cases of reconfiguring this rule, like that over the weekend you want to have a different rate, or if you are going to do compaction, you want to have a different rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the usual situation is that you have a simple rules that are configured like rate limits within gRPC server, but some external application that knows that they want to change the limits is dynamically pushing new set of configuration of the rules. And I wonder what are the use cases for so dynamic reconfiguration that it needs to happen within etcd server.
So dynamic. It's not very dynamic in the sense that you can dynamically change your rules or definition of rules. So once you define what a rule is, it's pretty much picked up at the initialization part, and then the rule is static itself. So the only thing that changes is the status of the rule. So over time, you can enable the rate limiter will automatically enable and disable rules depending on what your rule defines. But the rate limiter isn't like sort of, at least right now, it's not designed to do dynamic changes in rules. So that like it's not like a configuration file where you just change the configuration file and then the rule picks up and then it changes. Yeah, so that's not possible right now.
Yes, like even enabling or disabling a rule is a form of dynamic configuration.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that the community all agree that this is a great feature to have. If you could have like a Google Doc linked to your issue, or a link to your issue, then we can add in all the discussion in there.
Okay, I can do that.
All right, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I guess we'll decide if it's going to be in 3.5 once you get the estimation. And, I guess we probably should start to discuss 3.5 release
Got it.
plan sometime.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else about this topic? If not, looks like Sebastian is still not here. I think this is the first item is also have a lot of discussion on it. Let me open the issue for this one. So it's about the compatibility with etcd and gRPC. Gilho, do you want to say something about this item?
Yeah, so historically, like etcd client relies on the gRPC experimental features and then their interface, and then they changed their interface again. So we need to I hope we don't need to rewrite, but yeah, we need to look into how we're gonna use the latest gRPC. And then I'm not sure what is the Sebastian's question here. Can you go back to the Google Docs? Okay.
Yeah, it looks
Let me-
like you want a feature request, which is
Yeah, I will follow up with him like in the GitHub. Yeah, since he's still
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And for anybody who is interested, you can follow the link too. And there is another thing. Kubernetes 1.20 is gonna use SED 3.4.13. I didn't put in here. I should. I'll update the doc right after. Basically, the latest SED have 2 security fix, which is pretty important, and some other fixing there. Is there anything else? All right. If not, we'll see you guys next month. All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Cheers.